Hello to all and to all, hello. My name is Mac, and if you don't know me, I read and I make music, and I talk about the things I like. And on this channel, I talk about art and music and all the things I like. Again, as you can see, I have lots of interests in all the things, and I apologize if you hear my cat, she's right here. But today we're going to be talking about Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. It changed my brain chemistry, I'm convinced. It was so good and heartbreaking, but we'll get into that. Yeah, we're going to be talking about that today. Music in the background, it's the My Policeman soundtrack, because when I was editing my last video, editing the music was so annoying, and I think this is a little more personal and a little more chill, I guess. I have so much to say. So, let's get started. Song of Achilles. First of all, this cover is beautiful, and I'm obsessed with it, and it's just gorgeous, and the author is so pretty. Like, I don't know. This book is about Patroclus and Achilles. Patroclus is not his real name, but if you read the book, you'll find out that his name before is a whole thing. He grows up in a horrible, hi, my cat's here, in a horrible home, and is not loved, and unlike this little stinker here, she's spoiled, but he's not loved, and his father was upset that he was not born a fighter, with the body of a fighter, he was a healthy baby, but it wasn't enough because he was small, he was meek, and Patroclus is very kind and soft-hearted, and he's not a fighter, unlike his dad, and his partner, his man, basically, Achilles, that they meet when Patroclus gets sent away, because his father is just a horrible person. I don't want to spoil anything. I'm still trying to figure out the line between spoiling and describing the story, but Achilles is really the first person that tries to get to know him and doesn't judge him for what he looks like and his size, and he gets to know that he has so much brain power opposed to strength, like bodily strength, and but Patroclus is also very strong. It's just he's strong in a different way. He's agile. He's not, oh, I'm gonna beat you up, you know? And Patroclus takes out a side of Achilles that nobody really gets to see, because Achilles, in Greek, it means best of the Greeks, and then Patroclus means most beloved. So you can definitely see the differences there. But Achilles, he's always been, his fate, his father did some bad things to a siren, and she became pregnant, and she is half goddess, so therefore Achilles is half god. And the legend always was that Achilles was going to defeat everybody, and rise to the top, and he was best of the Greeks. And that was it. Nobody really ever wanted to know any other side of him. Nobody really ever wanted to know that he played the lyre, which is like kind of like a violin guitar thing. I'll put a picture of it like here, but but Patroclus did. He wanted to know, and he got to know him, and he made him feel safe, and Achilles protected Patroclus in return, but in a way, I think Achilles, the music is like so dramatic, I think in a way, that's so loud, I think in a way, Patroclus protected Achilles, especially later in the story, but Patroclus saw that Achilles needed somebody to be there for him and not just expect him to fight, and that's exactly what he did. But so they grow up together, and even though they're best friends, and they're best friends, but Achilles has to tell everybody that he's taken Patroclus as his like servant type thing, so that they can be together all the time, because Achilles is a form of royalty in their world. I can't remember what exactly he is, but I think he's a prince. Yeah, he's a prince, but for them to be together and for them to be able to spend a lot of time together, Patroclus had to be seen as Achilles' servant. But everybody knew that they had a bit of a special relationship. Eventually, they get sent to this centaur. His name is Chiron. They get sent to Chiron, and Chiron teaches them how to fight, and they grow together, and Chiron becomes sort of a father figure for the guys, for the boys, because neither of them really had the best father figures, and Chiron just wanted to teach them how to fight and how to survive, and he taught Patroclus medicine, and that came in handy during the Trojan War, which is later. I'm looking at for quotes to, say that, I mean, I have so many things highlighted, and I don't dog ear my pages, so I put in paper clips, but I mean, genuinely, I'm looking at this page, and someone called Achilles a weapon. They didn't see him as a human, and it's really sad. Chiron taught the boys the important things in life. He taught them that not everything is about money or land or riches. He taught them about medicine and about the earth and plants and all the things that they needed to survive, and it really did come in handy later. But one of my favorite quotes is the guys were fighting, and Achilles' mom came, and they don't have a great relationship because his mom wants him to fight and to win, and she's angry, and she becomes kind of a hero at the end of the book, which I'm not going to spoil because I was crying at the end of the book, but they become, like, something great had happened that day, and Patroclus and Achilles, they were fighting, like, they were practicing fighting. They weren't fighting each other, but, I mean, and they were both doing so great, and then Patroclus, he got really disappointed because he felt very sad, and he thought he wasn't doing enough, and he was angry at Achilles' mom, and it's horrible. And Chiron looks at him and says, "Do not let what you gained this day be so easily lost." Then he bade me good night, and I turned to join Achilles in the cave. I read that, and I highlighted it, and I think that's really important, and I think that's something that I personally need to remember, is that even though something happens, maybe at the end of the day or even at the beginning, you can't let that ruin the whole day, because there's still, I mean, you either did so much that day or you have the opportunity to turn it around. But yeah, and the description in this book, I'm looking at these pages. I mean, I took a while to read this because I really wanted to be able to focus on it. But an inarticulate cry, that is insane imagery. And then there is one scene when Patroclus and Achilles finally kiss, and Patroclus leaned forward first, and it says, "I was trembling, afraid to put him into flight." Not, "Oh, I was afraid that he was going to run away." I was afraid to put him into flight. Because Achilles is not used to being loved that way, and it's not that people didn't know that men liked other men, but it was definitely not spoken of. I mean, especially towards the end of the book, you realize that everybody in the camp kind of knew that they had a closer relationship than what they told everybody, but nobody cared because they were great. And but then there's down a little bit, it says, "He pressed against me, crushing my lips to wine." I read that and I took a second. I closed the book. I think I was in a Starbucks when I read that. But I closed the book and I said, "Holy crap. Crushing my lips like wine?" Not "he kissed me passionately," or he I know. He leaned in so close. "He crushed my lips like wine." And I think it takes a very special author, and this is just applause for Madeline Miller. It takes a special author to be able to put that type of imagery in your mind. Because saying, "Oh, he kissed me so passionately," that's different than "he crushed my lips like wine." It's just insane. And also, that's just so sweet that they're finally letting each other love, and they're letting each other be with each other. But my cat is right here. Anyways, but fast forward a little bit. The Greeks go to war with the Trojans, and I believe, I don't want to say that I'm wrong, but I mean, I read a lot about Greek history and Greek mythology and everything, and I'm very afraid that I'm getting that wrong, but they went to war, and Achilles finally got to do what biologically he was always meant to do. I mean, his mom always knew that he was going to be a fighter, which you can't deny that, but he wasn't just a fighter, and I think Patroclus saw that. But otherwise, I mean, there's so many battle scenes that, I mean, it's just talking about how Achilles could kill 3 men with his eyes closed, and it's just, he had that gift, and whether that was the gods being on his side or if it was his genuine biological need and want and skill, I don't know. But either way, it's fascinating to me how, and Achilles is such a two-sided person, because I mean, he's killing all these people out in the battlefield, but then he comes home to Patroclus in their tent, and he lays down, and he's not disappointed in himself for what he's done, but he's not exactly proud of it either. So yeah, the whole thing is that the what's the word I'm looking for? The myth, the story, the legend, I guess is what I'm trying to say here, is that Achilles cannot die until he kills Hector. And he was fine with that. Achilles was fine with that until he met Patroclus. And he didn't want him to die, and he didn't want to die, and he didn't want to leave Patroclus. And he kept, his leaders, because Achilles was close to the top in the hierarchy of the camp and of the the army, but his higher ups, they asked him repeatedly every day, when are you going to kill Hector? When are you going to do this? When are you going to do that? And he just simply said it wasn't the right time. But yeah, and I think that really shows is that he no longer cares. He no longer cared that it was against his honor and it was against what the gods wanted. He just wanted to be with his love, and that is incredibly sweet. And and I think that shows a lot of who he actually is as a person. At one point in the story, Patroclus takes because what would happen is the army would invade, and they would take the women and the goods and the gold and everything, and the gold got split up, or whoever captured it or took it, whatever, they got it. But the women, only the higher ups got, and Patroclus convinced Achilles to fake taking the women and harming them and abusing them, just so that Patroclus could teach them Greek. And they set up a tent for all these women that Patroclus and Achilles saved, and they all lived together, and nobody really knew what was going on behind closed doors because they just thought that Achilles had 1,000 wives, pretty much. But yeah, but at one point they kidnapped they kidnapped a priest's daughter, and Apollo told Achilles' mother, who they visit each other quite often. Well, she visits him. That Apollo told her that he was angry, and that how they took her and how they did everything was wrong. And he also said that he was mad that the prophecy hadn't been fulfilled. That's the word I was looking for earlier, was the prophecy. But the prophecy hadn't been fulfilled of him killing Hector. So they had to do multiple sacrifices of cows and pigs, and yeah. But they ended up being at war for 10 years. I think it was 10 years. Don't quote me on that, but either way, it was a long time. And the men started to get rowdy, and they were done. And Agamemnon, which was like the very top, pretty much, got angry, and they all turned against him. But then Achilles saved the day, and Agamemnon was very angry at him, and it was a whole thing, and it led to so much backstabbing isn't the word, but everybody was angry, and it turned to the point where Achilles didn't want to fight. He didn't want to fight. He didn't want to anymore. And it was bad, and everybody was turning against him because he didn't want to fight anymore. He was done with the violence, and he was done with everything. A priest came and told a story about someone in a similar sense of he didn't want to fight anymore because he didn't feel like he was getting the recognition that he wanted. And the people ended up hating him, and that was all that anybody remembered. They didn't remember that he had fought for however many years. But But the thing that stuck with me about the priest's story is that the prince that everybody was turning against was named Phoenix, and his bride was Cleopatra. And if you move around the name Cleopatra, you get the name Patroclus. So essentially the whole time the priest was talking, he was talking to Patroclus and saying, convince him. Because what happened in the end of the story is that his wife, the Phoenix, his wife convinced him to go back to war and to fight. And that's what the priest wanted him to do. And it says here, it says if Achilles, it's talking about the name thing of Cleopatra being rearranged to be Patroclus. It says if Achilles noticed, he did not show it. His voice is gentle for the old man's sake, but he still refuses it. So Achilles refused to go back and fight. But he doesn't want to. With Achilles not fighting, and then Ajax does not have Odysseus's equanimity. He glares, his face carved with anger. It cost him much to be here, to beg for his own demotion. With Achilles not fighting, he is Aristos Achaeon, which it's saying that if Achilles doesn't go back, he's going to lose all his glory. And that was, the priest is the one who said that, and that was the priest's last kind of reach to get to him, because at the end of the day, when all humans are prideful, and all humans, when it comes to their pride, it usually is more important than other people, unfortunately. So yeah, but eventually Patroclus tries to go to war for Achilles, and it ends very badly. And it ends with Achilles. It ends with Achilles going and brutalizing everyone because he's so angry that they killed Achilles. And it's insane to me that his anger, it wasn't his. Here's the thing: the thousands of lives of the Greeks that he would be saving by going back did not matter. But when it came to what happened to Patroclus, he went out immediately, and he killed everything in his sight, and but then he died. They both died, and it's so odd how Achilles died in the end, because it was kind of out of carelessness. But it says here for Patroclus, the last thing I think is Achilles. Then when Achilles goes to kill Hector, he chases him, and he even defeats a god, a water god, who comes out of a river and rises up, and they fight, and he hits him, but Achilles defeats the water god and makes him go back to where he came from, pretty much. And it continues, and Achilles finally catches Hector. And it says this. It says, Hector's eyes are wide, but he will run no longer. He says, grant me this, give my body to my family when you have killed me. Achilles makes a sound like choking. There are no bargains between lions and men. I will kill you and eat you raw. That pretty much sums it up right there. And what happens afterwards is Achilles, for 7 days, I believe, he drags Hector's body around the walls of the who they were fighting, their fortress. Basically, he drags it around, and his mother comes and says, here, I'll read it. Hukamoros, his mother calls him in her softest voice. Swift-fated is what Hukamoros means. Will you not eat? You know I will not. She touches her hand to his cheek as if to wipe away blood. He flinches. Stop, he says. Her face goes blank for a second, so quickly he does not see. When she speaks, her voice is hard. It is time to return Hector's body to his family for burial. You have killed him and taken your vengeance. It is enough. It will never be enough, he says. And this whole time, I mean, it has like in italics, it has what Patroclus is saying, but he's gone, he's dead, so he can't hear him, obviously, and it's Patroclus is begging him to move on, but I mean, he can't. It's the love of his life, and it continues, and Achilles ends up going and brutalizing and eventually burned Patroclus's body because Achilles kept the body for days. But eventually he burnt it, and I'll just read the passage. It says, the next day he carried, this is from Patroclus's point of view, his soul, basically. The next day he carries me to the Pyre. Brises and the Meridians watch as he places me on the wood and strikes the flint. The flames surround me, and I feel slipping further from life, thinning to only the faintest shiver in the air. I yearn for the darkness and silence of the underworld, where I can rest. He collects my ashes himself, even though this is a woman's duty. He puts them in a golden urn, the finest in our camp, and turns to the watching Greeks. When I am dead, I charge you to mingle our ashes and bury us together. Achilles set aside his royalty and his fame and his legacy to be with an exile. Because essentially, I mean, if you read the book, and I'm not going to spoil it all, but that's what Patroclus is. He's an exile. And, unfortunately, Achilles, when he passes, they do not bury him and Achilles and him and Patroclus together. They do, but they don't put Patroclus's name on the grave. So therefore, he's not able to move on. And Patroclus stays there, not in the underworld, because he can't, I mean, he doesn't have closure, or he can't move on. Unfortunately, he can't move on. It's his mother who, she writes his name beside Achilles's on the tomb. And then she says, go. He waits for you. And the last line of the book. And skip, if you don't want to know, skip. In the darkness, two shadows reaching through the hopeless, heavy dusk. Their hands meet, and light spills in a flood, like 100 golden urns pouring out the sun. Okay, the angle might have changed a little bit, but I had to go see what my cat was doing because she was getting into something. But I think my final thoughts on this book, which is I don't think that you can minimize a book. My cat's coming in. I don't think you can minimize books, like a book to one sentence. That's why I don't like book reports. You can't minimize a work of art into a thesis statement. And I know, but I think that this book is a true it's a true example of when you feel like you've lost a part of you, when you feel when you feel empty because you've lost somebody and you know you'll never get them back. I mean, it's hard enough when things ended or you broke up and you know that they're still alive and well, but when you know that they can't move on and that they're dead and that you're the one who has to just keep going. I mean, that's horrible. Especially when you were never the one that was supposed to deal with that. I mean, it was always supposed to be Achilles died first. But once you read the book, you'll see that Patroclus did what he thought he had to do, and Achilles didn't stop him. But this is truly a Greek tragedy, you know? I mean, it's not, it's an adaptation of Achilles, but I need to look up and see if Patroclus, let me Google that right now, actually, hold on. Patroclus was too. In the Iliad, here, let's look. In the Iliad, Homer describes a deep and meaningful relationship between Achilles and Patroclus, where Achilles is tender toward Patroclus, but callous and arrogant toward others. Its exact nature, whether homosexual or a non-sexual deep friendship, or something else entirely, has been a subject of dispute in both the classical period and modern times. Homer never explicitly cast the two as lovers, but they were depicted as lovers in the archaic and classical periods of Greek literature, particularly in the works of Aeschylus, Aeschines, and Plato. Right now I'm reading the book Republic of Plato, actually. I'm going to do a video on that too. Some contemporary critics, especially the field of queer studies, have asserted that their relationship was homosexual or latently homosexual, while some historians and classicists have disputed that, stating that there is no evidence of such an assertion within the Iliad, and criticized it as unfalsifiable. I think that they probably had something, but I mean, you can't dumb down a story like that, and you can't dumb down a story to whether or not these people liked men. And I think that's an issue that we have a lot in literature and art, is that people try to dumb down these things when there's so much more. I mean, it says it right there that Achilles was hateful almost to everyone except Patroclus. And I think that really that right there is more than any claim that he was gay. I think that matters. I think that the fact that he was recorded in being nicer to Patroclus than anyone else, I think that says more than some classicists dispute that there's no evidence of him being gay. Okay, don't care. You can't dumb a story that has so much meaning and so much power down to whether or not someone was gay. You can't. And especially with something as classic as the Iliad. I mean, I read it I read the Odyssey. Are they the same thing? The Odyssey and the Iliad? I don't know. But I read it in English class and I loved it. But yeah. And I think it really is a story of, you find love in a weird place and then it's heart-wrenching when it gets taken away from you. So, which I don't know how many people have experienced that, but it's not a good feeling. So, especially when you find your soulmate, especially when you find your twin flame. So, yeah. Anyways, that's Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. I don't know when my next video will be, but I really enjoy making these, and I thank you for watching if you made it to the end. But, yeah, so I will see you guys next time. Bye!